G'day, I'm Matt, and this is Full Send Engineering episode number 7. Now, I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. It's Matthew Burke. Matt's one of the leading timber designers in Australia, and he started out as an engineer or as a surfer actually in Newcastle and had a strong passion for timber and carpentry. Now, he almost became a tradie, but made the decision to go to University of Newcastle and study business and engineering, which was a 5-year degree at the time. And what an amazing decision that was, Matt. You know, it really set the foundation for an amazing career. Now, as a founder and director of his own business, he's worked on some really amazing projects. You know, we're talking Sydney Fish Markets, the Timber Roof. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. Type it into Google now. Have a look. This timber structure is going to be inspiring structural engineers for many generations to come. And he's worked on some other timber structures like the University of Newcastle Q building, and then also structures like International House in Barangaroo. A building that really set the building blocks for timber in Australia, which is a great one. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, what I like about Matt is he might be a timber consultant, but he's the first person to say when timber's not the right option. And through his work with developers and builders, he's really been able to rationalise timber, not just from an environmental standpoint. And I know timber's a great environmental product, but he really looks at the other impacts and rationalises it on many more elements than that. So today we're going to get stuck into Matt's early start, him moving to the big smoke, and we'll get into some of the ways he approaches timber design. So Matt, welcome to Full Send Engineering. It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. It's great to be here, mate. It's great to catch up again.
Yeah, I know. Well, gosh, it's been a few years.
It has, mate. It's hard. You're looking good.
Don't say that. I was going to say the same thing about you, mate.
Oh, you got a glow. You got a glow.
So I wanted to start off in those early years.
Sure.
You know, I can imagine like a little bit of a surf rat at high school. You know, you're kind of getting into timber. I wanted to know in those first years kind of what timber taught you and what like working with your hands and stuff taught you about maybe some lessons that you might have used later on in your life.
Yeah, so I suppose my journey might be a little bit different as well. But yeah, throughout high school, I got the opportunity to work as pretty much a tradie and do all that fun stuff. And yeah, it was super appealing at the time. And, you know, I wasn't super into school like many people in high school, you know, and this was just a really great outlet to, you know, make some money and go surfing and start to feel like you kind of progress. And yeah, like at the time, you don't really think anything of it, but later in the career, yeah, it was so key and kind of fundamental working in a trade and getting that experience on site, seeing stuff how, you know, go together and, yeah, watching the pain points on site as well, right? Like, you get a very live, you know, real feedback and you go, oh, you know, I probably shouldn't do that. Or like, I remember that guy didn't appreciate that very well. So yeah, look, mate, at the time, didn't really, you know, wasn't really thinking, does this unlock anything later on? But yeah, no, it was great. I got to get some more money. And at the time I thought that was, you know, it was pretty run of the mill. A lot of people from the school I was going to dropped out, get a trade, and that was pretty common.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I still talk to those people and they're still doing well.
Yeah, they're doing really well, yeah.
So, yeah.
Keeps coming up in our talks that we all should have become tradies.
Oh, mate, yeah.
So I know, because I know you're kind of looking at some of your mentors and role models in your family and kind of seeing that the kind of trade idea coming up and that's kind of firmly planted in your mind.
Yep.
What was it that kind of unlocked that idea of maybe I should go to uni and study?
Yeah, I think, like in the short term, obviously, you know, you're trying to think, you know, it's hard in high school to know what you want to do anyway. You know, like no one really knows. So I thought it was good to go out and kind of experience it. And, you know, it was really kind of, yeah, getting a lot out of it at the time. But I think the most sobering thing for me was seeing like the older people, you know, 60, 65-year-old guys just still swinging a hammer, still lugging stuff around. And yeah, I kind of saw that like that was kind of a bit more of a pivotal moment. I'm glad I went through it all because I feel like you need to make those sort of connections yourself because then you kind of think, oh, this is why school's so important. This is what education kind of does, right? Like you can keep going and you don't have to kind of do this at your later age. So Yeah, look, I'm glad it all kind of worked out, but that for me was the point where I'm like, man, I don't have it in me, mate.
Senior-old man still like throwing a hammer around.
Yeah, I've just seen that, that once you start getting it and that's kind of it, I think university and all that starts to make a lot of sense, because if you can do, have an office job and get in a kind of senior career, that kind of clicked to me. And it was, when you probably got a family and stuff, it's a bit easier. So I thought, maybe school's a pretty good idea, actually.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. And when I was going through uni and I was kind of looking at some of my mates who were starting businesses and really like moving on with their lives, and here we are, living at my mum's house, kind of thinking, geez, these guys are driving around brand new utes and full of gear and buying their first houses and stuff. What was that moment for you like, when you kind of gone through maybe towards the end of your degree? It was a 5-year degree. What was kind of going through your head? Were you like, gosh, this better stack up,
It's bloody tough. Like being at a relatively young age where, surfing and cars are probably the most important thing to me at that time.
Yeah.
And then, seeing your mates that are, like you go into university, which is 5 years, and then you're doing year 11 and 12 and it feels like you're just getting further and further and further behind. And all the mates in the trade game are just, they're buying, as you said, buying houses, they got the nice cars. And to reiterate that point, like you finally get your grad job and you're not making, the money's not great anyway.
Yeah, you start on your money 50, 60K.
So it just feels like, it feels like you're really kind of going backwards, and that's a hard thing to swallow when you see, especially the group of mates that kind of surrounded me. They're all doing such good things. They're so exciting. They can just do what they want. They go on holidays, and that it just feels like at the moment that's so far away. From like I hope this pays off. So, but yeah, I think getting back to the previous experience, I had a why. I didn't have any, I wonder if I should do this, wonder if I should do this.
You knew what you wanted.
I already was like, no, this, like, I know what's on the other side and this is a good thing. So I just kind of stuck with it. But it's tough, mate. Yeah. The delayed gratification is
tell me
it's very real. And everyone congratulate you. You got your first engineering job. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still, I'm still living at home.
I was still eating noodles.
Exactly. For a good couple of years as well.
So I wanted to ask you about kind of your first gig while you're studying. I know you were doing your undergrad and you were working out of the Newcastle office at the time, working at Northrop Consulting. Yep. Tell us about how that was. And I wanted to ask it or frame it from a perspective of, you stayed in Newcastle for a few years and then you moved back over to Sydney. And there was a little bit of a kind of not a wake up call, but maybe a change in the way that the dynamic worked.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to know about kind of your undergrad years and that shift into the big smoke.
Yeah, it's funny how everything kind of ties in. I remember my interview for that job because Northrop in the Newcastle office was very synonymous with the university.
Yes.
So they would do all the projects and do the guest lecturing and they pretty much had the monopoly there. So, it was the job to kind of get. And I remember in my interview, like very, very like down the very bottom, I put my kind of trade experience. And before that, I already interned at another engineering firm. So I had like super relevant experience. And the first thing in the interview, and I didn't even tell him it was like my old boss is a manager or not, because he was a pretty rough dude. And the thought of them calling him for a reference, and I didn't say, I just thought, oh my God. So we talked about that for like half an hour. And here I was thinking I'm kind of orchestrating this perfect resume, and I was almost not going to put it in.
You're smashing your star questions.
Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, talk to me about this. And I'm like, oh, this is so awkward.
That's so funny.
So yeah, I feel like it kind of helped because again, you don't really know, like, for me, going for an engineering job, they want technical ability, right? Like they want you. Like
that's what you think.
That's what you think, and really, they're just like, no, that's really good. Like I didn't know they actually went on site.
Is that right?
All the time, who tells you this sort of stuff?
So annoying. Like, I remember literally And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to start something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I had no idea what engineers actually did until
Oh.
like 3 or 4 years into uni.
I said it in the interview. They're like, why do you want to work here? Well, I'm pretty keen to understand what they do because no one really like
That's so funny.
tells. And yeah, I think like it went well, but that bit was really surprising, and I was super self-conscious about like just thinking, oh my God, you've called like this old guy. He was the loosest. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you want to know? Like, you know, like.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the first 3 months working, you're like, oh, I actually get that now. Like, one of your roles is like you go on site a lot. You have to communicate with all different kinds of people, tradesmen. Like, it's actually super relevant. But I didn't put that together at all. I was like, oh, look how good I am at maths. Like,
yeah. Here's when I showed team leadership at uni, on this uni assignment.
I do lots of group assignments. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
So I know the offices that you were working in at the time were like kind of close, tight knit.
Yeah.
And then you made your big shift into Sydney office. What was that like for you?
Yeah, very different. I think, the Newcastle office was almost kind of family-ish orientated and a lot of good people there. Like everyone just wants you to do well. Quite a small team as well. And I think working with the same bunch of people, you kind of find your role like within that team, and had some really, really good mentors there. And it was just kind of, a little bit more chill, not in the hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
But, that was my first engineering job. So it was still a big office, corporate setting.
Yeah.
So there was still some adjustment period there. But then I move to Sydney probably 2 years after that, or 2.5 years after I did some, I worked throughout university as well, which was super, super helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And if anyone is looking to do engineering, strongly encourage that. Like they've written all the major projects, and you've just got this untapped resource that's like, oh, how do I solve all this? And everyone wants to help. Like, it's really good. But yeah, they moved to Sydney. So my wife now got a job. She works in fashion. So we had to go down there, and I could do either way, but I thought, sure, we'll move down. And yeah, the Sydney office was something different. Same company, but just such a bigger office, like in Martin Place there, like getting the train in, and there's just people everywhere.
Oh, it's a bit of a culture shock going
into
Sydney sometimes. Everyone's in their own world going to the office.
And I think what it was, because I get asked, well, I used to kind of chat with management as well, like what are the different cultures like between the office? And it's kind of hard to put your finger on it, but it felt like, it was almost machine-like, just because there's so many people there and they're all just like so focused, just pumping stuff out, and you kind of like, it's a little bit intimidating.
It is intimidating, absolutely.
You're like, wow, this is like, everyone's pretty fair income here. Like I wanted to kind of, chat about the weekend sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously that changes once you get to know people, but at a first glance, it's like, wow, and everyone kind of looks too busy that you can't even go up and, everyone's pumping stuff out. But obviously that wore off, and it was all fine and everyone's super nice. But it definitely was a bit of a culture shock for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think everyone feels that, when they move to a new office. It doesn't have to necessarily be with the same company or, it's just a feeling where you get where you really got to unlock people and work out who your people are before you can really like kind of feel comfortable and, find your groove a little bit.
Yeah, and it's weird like going to a coffee machine and not knowing that person.
Yeah. Such an opportunity though, right?
It is. But then it's like, I think that was it as well. It's like, I've been here like 6 months and like, I still don't know who that guy is. Like, and
it's probably me sitting across at the time I was sitting on the other side of the office.
Again, with time, that all kind of dissipates and everyone's super nice.
Yeah,
that's a weird kind of, a bit of a weird notion as well. So,
but I know at the time you started working closer with some of your managers and mentors, and you started getting exposed to some of the really cooler projects in Sydney. Can you tell us a little bit something about maybe that's where you started doing your first got stuck into the timber design?
Yeah, well, I used to do. There was a project for the University of Newcastle that they were looking at timber. So it started in the Newcastle office, and again, I had a good understanding of how buildings kind of go together at that stage. So that was super kind of fundamental to working in that kind of timber space. And this is just in like a residential housing context.
No way,
But because I was a grad and I was cheap, like I got a really good opportunity to dive into the mass timber stuff.
So this is you got kind of moving from resi structures like houses
Yeah.
into more mass timber and more major project.
Yeah.
Or is that what you kind of call it?
Yeah, I think just a bigger, because, like it was a new thing for the office, and it's quite fun, right? Because everyone in there knows like steel, concrete, every bread and butter, like you're never going to know anymore. But this thing was new and it was exciting, and my manager really gave me a good opportunity. And he was just kind of like, yeah, go for it. Just, learn everything there is to know. Like, we need to kind of deliver this.
Wow.
And through that, I was working with the Sydney office as well, because they were working in this, doing a couple of jobs and working on International House as well at the time. So I was liaising with them, and we were sharing notes, and, it was quite fun. That one didn't actually ever get built. It's still actually kind of around. But I was kind of got up to speed on it. I spoke to kind of enough people around, and that was kind of where it started. And then, when I moved to the Sydney office, because I kind of reached out to those guys anyway, and I was working in a similar capacity, and I was all asking questions and stuff like that, then, I got to kind of continue that and, just really, really enjoyed it. So
I know at the time International House was kind of this kind of not groundbreaking, but I mean, it was kind of the first time in Sydney where we started to see really cool timber structures coming to life. And I think I don't know a whole lot about like kind of the differences between the glue lam and the cross-laminated timber and stuff like that. But can you tell us a little bit about how the CLT kind of unlocked that project?
Yeah, for sure. So the glue lam part of it, which is just, it's basically a fancy timber joist, you just... And glue lam's just a form of engineered timber, and that basically means it's timber that's been cut up and stuck back together.
Okay.
So, and what's nice about that, if you cut it up, you can grade it, so it's a natural material, but you can, now you can actually be sure of what goes back in, and if you stick it back together, you can make any shape you want, so you're not governed to, a tree anymore. So that's quite a big technology in itself, and been around for over 100 years.
Okay.
So beams and columns, we'd use glue lam, and we can create some cool kind of section sizes, and we're not just limited to the log anymore. We can do whatever. And that's, so if you get to build a building, beams and columns are important, but you also need slabs and walls. And that was the missing element for mass timber. We didn't really have a way to do that, so we might have done like a concrete composite floor or something like that. But the best way, and this is all the way back to like housing, timber connections, you always want to connect timber with timber. So whenever you have an interface with concrete or steel, you want to just basically put a bit of timber on there and make it a timber-timber connection, because that's in the carpenter's wheelhouse. That's what they'll always do. So a slab on ground, they'll bolt a timber bottom plate to it, and they'll just send studs up, because that's how you pretty much solve it. And it's a similar thing, right? So glue lam, when you're mixing it with other materials, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But CLT is basically, then that got introduced, and it's basically just plywood. It's just plywood on steroids.
Yeah, okay.
And why that is good, because we can now do floors with it, and we can get like a timber to timber connection. It's all lightweight, and it all starts to come together and make sense. And what I think is really important is with the cross-laminated timber, so it's like plywood, it has cross-directional lamellas, and it gives it dimensional stability. So timber grows and shrinks. It's a natural product.
Yeah.
But once you lay it up in like a cross-laminated section, all of a sudden you lay a floor and it'll stay there and it won't move.
Right?
And that's huge. Like that's kind of allowing, and it's got a capacity now to span in both directions like a concrete slab would. So the introduction of CLT really gave all the ingredients for you to do a mass timber structure, because you've got the floor, you've got the walls, and now you've got the glue lam elements to go with that. And it makes a whole lot of sense, because it's, from similar suppliers, we're all timber to timber. You're getting the benefit of the lightweight. Aesthetically, it's much nicer.
Completely.
We're getting rid of these stupid, cladding things on the soffits and stuff. Yeah, so I think that kind of paved the way. That technology all of a sudden allowed us to do a fully timber style building. We've got all the materials, we've got all the important structural elements, and we can stick them together in a homogeneous kind of package.
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to know about, as a structural engineer, you go out to site, you're inspecting you're counting Rio bars, you're counting spacings, checking thicknesses and stuff.
Yeah, don't I know it.
Tell me about going out to a timber project and the kind of the differences that you might see to like a conventional concrete building. Maybe talk through the Cube building.
Yeah, I can give you another example as well, but I suppose a timber site is so nice, right? Like, so when you go to a tipper, nothing against concrete, but when you go to a concrete, resi job, you've got your form Rio pour. So you got your form workers and they're just tracking stuff everywhere. There's just frames everywhere. It's barely, it's a lot, and there's heaps of them.
Yeah.
Then you've got your steel fixers, and so you'll see in the cranes they're dropping Rio like right next, like you're dodging all that, and they're tying like mad. And then you've got your concreters. So you got the big trucks reversing in,
pumps,
booms, vibrating everything, like it's loud. It makes sense in a lot of scenarios for sure, but there's a lot of traffic, right?
Yep.
Walking onto a timber job, there's like 5 people there, and they're just putting these things in. Like, it's all, the connections are pre-installed in the factory. It's all CNC. It's like 2 mil tolerance.
Wow.
And it just goes together like a quiet jigsaw puzzle that there's nothing to do. There's all they have is like a whirling of a drill. And they're just, like, it's the same. The biggest thing is you get a continuation of trades. So you have these same, let's call them carpenters, right?
Yeah.
You have these 5 carpenters that just lift these beams and columns into place and the slab panels into place, and they just keep going. There's no hold point here or get another, they just go. And there's a huge benefit for, especially like, construction's a dangerous game. And the safety aspect of that as well, how neat it is, how quiet it is on site. You can actually hear yourself think. It's like really, really nice. It's such a nice place to be. And just an example of where that gets quite important. I remember a job that was being built next to an active hospital.
Yeah, okay.
And I suppose we'll get into this a little bit later, but all the jobs I've worked on, timber, it's a really cool story how timber got involved. And there's always it's always taken a site constraint and then figuring out how timber can combat that. And, if it can't, it's not the right material, but there's some really fun stories around whether it's geotechnical conditions or speed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And for this particular one, to your point about what the construction site looks like, they had an active hospital next to the building, so they couldn't have any vibration, they couldn't have the noise, and they had to build it really quickly, and almost silently. So they built this mass timber structure next to it where there's 5 people. You're not getting, imagine concrete trucks, just 3 of those a week, just
100%.
reversing in where you got an active hospital and all the vibrations and all the heavy machinery and all the foot traffic.
Yeah.
So the mass timber won because it was heaps quicker. There was no disruption to all the, surrounding hospitals, and your site teams, you basically reduce about 80% of the foot traffic on site.
I can imagine that.
During that construction. So you've got 5, 6 guys there.
Trades.
You've got a crane. You've got your material sitting there and you're just silently putting this stuff together. No one would know you're there. And that's an example of, why that won in that kind of case.
So I know kind of the normal form Rio pour cycle, you build your columns, you form up your slab, get all your Rio in, pour your slab, then build the columns again. Like, I don't know, maybe like a cycle time of a week. Wait for your concrete to go off, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
For a building.
Yeah,
what are you throwing around?
You're doing pretty well if you're doing a week.
A pour a week.
Yeah. You're probably more like 2, and then you're also doing, remember, you usually got construction joints, so you're breaking those pours up as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because concrete's shrinking as well. So it's not like you just do a full deck and go again. You usually break the pours up. You've got a column pour. Then you've got maybe a transfer beam pour if you've got one, or then you've got your slab pours as well. So
these buildings that you're working on, how fast are they going up?
So we did the Q building, went up in 5 days a level. That's just crazy.
Hang on, 5 days per level?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because, the footprint's not huge, but again, there was like 4 or 5 guys there, and they just built this thing.
Yeah.
In under a month.
Crazy.
It was a crazy thing to watch, and that was the moment when I was like, this is so much smarter.
Yeah, it's like really working.
This is, and that's when I was kind of like, I think this is the thing I want to pursue. It's It's just so different to what I'm used to. It's so much cleaner, and everyone on that site just seems stoked. Because I think everyone secretly loves it. Yeah, and it's just a really...
It's like the love for the trade, eh?
Yeah.
And the love for the material.
It's very kind of elegant, and it's all kind of clean and nice. And
I can imagine your client walking out on site and just thinking, wow, you guys have smashed it out.
Especially that was the first building, mass timber building in Newcastle as well, and it was for the university I went to.
Yeah.
And it was only like couple years after graduation as well.
That's so cool.
And then I'm just kind of here doing this. So yeah, I felt like I almost had kind of skin in the game as well, because it's like trying to give back to, the place that gave you your degree.
Yeah.
If that was the building that I just thought, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned skin in the game. It's something that stood out to me when I was chatting to you in preparation for this, and we'll get to it later. I feel like you've got this kind of like accountability over the industry. Yeah. Not just accountability over the way you're doing things, but you're actually like thinking about things like, hey, if we get one of these buildings wrong, we're going to stuff up the entire industry here. And timber's on this really like positive trajectory. We really got to get every one of them right, and I think that probably is one of the reasons why, builders and developers and clients coming to you for advice, because you've got this real strong sense of wanting to get it right for Australia and for timber.
Yeah, because it's my job now, right? And if I don't protect the industry, then the industry won't protect me.
Yeah.
I kind of need it now, and yeah, it's like I was saying to you before. There's been there might be one or two jobs that maybe weren't done so well or had some problems, but we've also done 40 jobs kind of perfectly. But mate, when you walk into the meeting, all the builders and developers, the only thing they want to talk about is the job that didn't go well.
Is that right?
So it's like, no one goes there and like, oh, remember that job? That went so well. It's like, oh, I heard there was an issue with this job. And you're like, oh, kind of like...
That's so funny.
So, it only takes, one job to, if you're not getting the right advice.
Industry.
Yeah. And that's why it's a little bit fragile at the moment, but I think, we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were. And Australia's adaptation of the material in general has been really good. We've sorted a compliance kind of pathway out, and we're seeing it more and more. So it is good. But I feel there is a little bit of onus on, to make sure that these things are going, and it's a pleasant experience for everyone, because all the builders that I work, they just loved it. It's
so good.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable.
I wanted to ask you about the fish markets, because there's been so much publicity in the last week.
Yeah, Henry's designed that job.
We've been, looking on LinkedIn, and we've been seeing, the mayor and everyone just absolutely frothing on this roof,
Yeah.
And for people that haven't seen it, it's this like massive wave like roof that kind of morphs over the entire building, and it's incredible, right? I know that every joint in this roof is completely different, and I kind of want to know about, like, as an engineer, what that's like going into the design of these structures, and particularly on the fish markets. I know that the durability side of it was really intricate, and I kind of wanted to kind of dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, it's, again, a super interesting story how that roof became timber, and how it all eventuated. But yeah, the durability thing definitely was a really big kind of factor in it, but it actually helped it, because they ran like a steel option side by side, and the maintenance costs, like, it's not super straightforward looking at the building, but the corrosivity category for that building internally is really, really high, because it's just a function of how the stuff gets used, and it's actually higher than it was outside. So when you've got a really, really corrosive environment, the steel might be cheaper in the buying and the installing, but you need to look at the life cycle assessment, and it's a government kind of asset, right? Like, you need to maintain this, and there's a bit bigger picture there. And steel oxidizes. So when you get moisture and oxygen, there's like a chemical corrosion that happens, and when you mix that with chlorine, you have like a section loss. It starts to corrode, and you have to paint steel. Whereas timber doesn't rust.
Completely.
It doesn't undergo that.
Yeah.
And that was quite a powerful thing. So just its material, just being timber, it actually worked out cheaper to do the that life cycle assessment, because it needs less maintenance, just because of its ability to not get so harmed by the corrosivity of
environment.
The environment. Yeah.
And so we're talking, for a timber structure, how many years would you expect to do maintenance before maintenance is required, maybe sealing or something like that?
Yeah, so internally, like you'd probably get, it's kind of different. So for a column, you can imagine people feel, touch, it's timber, that's cool. So, maybe internally you might want to treat that every 5, 10, 15 years, It depends on the coatings as well. Like if you get a real shiny sort of, like I always advise to go a natural look, because then you can kind of leave it. So stuff internally you shouldn't really have to maintain. So that could just go to the design life. It's only if other factors like foot traffic or you're getting marks and stuff on it, there might be some cleaning, but internally, generally, it's not an issue, provided you've got, it's not baking in UV, you've got glazing that's filtering that out. Externally, it depends. So the fish market's like what we call service class 2, so it's not actually like exposed, it's always undercover, so it's not susceptible to direct rain. It'll only get wet if you get really horizontal wind-driven rain.
Okay.
And for that environment, yeah, you probably get 5, 10 years sort of thing. And then, but again, it depends on what coating you go for. And I'm not a coating expert, but if you want a real shiny, new looking building, then you're probably going to have to coat it more to get that. But if you go like something more natural, then you can kind of just let it sit. If you do external timber, that's fully external, that's when you need to be careful, and you're probably looking at a different species of timber, etc. And the maintenance would be kind of heavy on that, depending on the species of timber. So kind of hard to do. There's so many different environmental factors. It's kind of hard to do a
clean cut.
Yeah. But the key thing, I suppose, for the fish market, if you actually look at it, like if there's just normal rainfall, like none of the timber's getting wet.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, like there's a roof on it, and it's all, the facade's all cladded. So there was some thought in that,
What a cool project. And I think it's going to be really one that we do kind of look back at and think, wow, that's really a project that got it right,
Yeah.
Now, I kind of wanted to get a little bit into how you go about rationalizing timber on projects, because you just gave a really interesting story about timber not as the first option. And I know that you got a few of those. And I kind of wanted to understand, now you've kind of gone into your own business and you're really kind of like talking to builders and developers. And maybe you're getting approached on buildings where conventional form Rio pours going to happen, or, we're looking at combined structures. How do you what's your thought process think when you go into a kind of negotiation where you know that the building's not currently timber and you maybe think it is the right option?
Yeah, I think, so how I approach timber projects generally, which, not trying to be controversial or anything, but I always take the environmental side out. So I leave that. I mean, timber is environmentally a better outcome, but I don't treat, because if you're just relying on that in isolation, steel and concrete, we're going to get better at manufacturing this in the future. And there'll be a point where they're just going to become closer and closer. Maybe not, par for par, but I think it's a weak argument to just kind of say timber's sustainable, like you should use it.
Yeah.
And then, Meriton Apartments, it wouldn't make any sense, right? Like they're a well-oiled machine, they're 40 stories tall.
Yeah.
It's not the right and no one's going to have fun. It's going to be stupid and it's not worth doing.
Yeah, completely.
So I think the environmental aspect on its own, I don't think should be enough to warrant the timber, because generally timber at our market at the moment, it's generally more expensive than steelwork and concrete. That's just the fact.
Yeah.
But you need to factor in the site constraints. And if you can get timber to solve some of those site constraints, then it wins in its own right. And the benefit is it's more sustainable, right?
Completely.
But address the site constraint first, and then the environmental argument can be something that bolsters that option.
So what's that been for you? What's on a couple of projects?
So I had working on a project in Queensland, and they're doing a vertical extension of an existing building. And if you ever think about that, like peel it back a little bit, for a developer, the highest leasable asset is their top floors, right? It has the best views. It's the nicest place to be. People will pay a premium. And just by, not knocking the building down, that's very, very good sustainable outcome, because there's so much that goes on with that. And it's looking at, okay, well, how do we do this? And I'm a big advocate for this, and I'm so glad I'm finally working on one, because I've been trying to convince people to do this forever. So what the client's looking for is, okay, I'm going to add some vertical extensions. I've got an existing tower. It's got existing foundation capacity. It can already, we can't just put another 20 stories on it. So it's got a constraint. And, if you could put 2 levels of concrete on that building, and you could go up and you could make it nice, or you could use timber, and timber's a fifth of the weight of concrete. So you could do 3 levels.
Wow.
And for a developer, if you've got a full extra level, and you've got this beautiful timber space, like you get all the biophilic response, it's neat, it's kind of different. It makes so much sense, like commercially, to lease this place. Generally, you're always going to get higher rents for a cool timber office. It's a nice place to work. If you can get a whole other floor, like again, we're not looking at the environmental impact, even though it's really good. Like timber just wins in its own right. And then there's also the argument, you could have just done steel as well. But we worked through a lot of stuff, and we did a lot of different designs, and we finally got timber across the line because, it makes sense if you've got your most polished asset as a developer on top of this tower, making such a nice place to work, such a cool, different, it's going to, lease really, really well. And it makes sense to kind of spend the money there, you'll get your return. So if you get an extra level and a really, really nice place to work, like that's it, that's the equation done.
Yeah, you got your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And on these projects, are you coming in under the builder? Are you coming in under the architect? Are you coming in for the developer, or is it different?
It varies. It varies. I'm trying to align myself more to the developer side because I think there's, I hate seeing jobs that go down a timber route and it's too late and it's in tender and it never made any sense anyway.
Yeah.
And that could have been one conversation to be like, hey, you might be talking to someone that has other motives to get this across the line, and unfortunately it doesn't make sense. The developer doesn't need to know, they're not meant to know that,
Yeah, completely.
So as you said before, I'll be the first one to say this is a stupid idea. Get that out. But there's always opportunities to kind of do it. So look, I'm working for all builders, developers, architects, especially design competitions as well for the architects saying, hey, this is the building type, I've got limited floor to floor height. So I've got all these constraints. And I think it's really powerful just kind of saying, look, don't bother here, but there's a real opportunity here, or, it won't work. And I think it's a better way to gain respect, because then you don't end up developers paying consultants, thousands of dollars to get a tender thing together, and it was never the right thing in the first place.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And, we've all been on those projects where they're going down a concept which doesn't, you're like, how the hell did this get passed? Why am I in final detail design right now?
Exactly. And it's no good for anyone, because you're flogging a dead horse, you got to then do this project or you got to be the bearer of bad news at a late stage. Yeah. And I've had to do that before, and that sucks.
Yeah, completely.
Sorry guys, this actually won't work. What?
Just want to be a fly on the wall.
It's hard to make friends doing that as well, But I think, just being realistic about it and looking at a project based on its merits. And there's some really cool things you can do, like the honeysuckle job, for example, it had almost kind of built in a swamp. So a timber, the fifth of the weight of concrete, doing a micropile solution, you're getting all that savings.
Yeah,
with the foundations,
full on.
Piled. Yeah, so it's I can go on and on, but it's you need to look at the site constraints, and then you need to respond to that. And then I think treating the environmental aspect just as overall positive as something else, and not just leaning on that to be like, oh, you should do everything in timber.
You're saving,
it's environmental. It's but it's
saving so much carbon here, guys.
Yeah.
Let's get back to that.
Yeah, it's our 40-story tower though is only 4 stories high. So
that's so funny. And I know that when you're kind of on these projects, you might have some opportunities to go to the manufacturer or to do some overseas trips on visiting timber plants here and there. What's that like? Can you tell us about some of your experiences kind of doing those kind of stages and maybe mock-ups and things like that?
Yeah, no, it's visual mock-ups are great, and I suggest all European supply jobs should be pushing for them because you get a good trip and you get to, hang out with the design team. And
Hang on, where are we talking?
but no, it's really good. So yeah, for fish market as an example, I got to do like a month in Italy, so working with the supplier there, and that was so cool because you get like, if you really want to understand like a design for assembly and pre-construction and how that all works, it's definitely like you need to go to a supplier. You need to figure out how they make the timber, just that full holistic kind of cycle of it, because then you can just use that forever. You can say, and I look at jobs going, man, they're not going to want to fabricate that. Like, like anything, like this, there's no machine in the world that can do that. Like I'm telling you.
Wow.
So yeah, it was such a cool experience. I went over to the design team in there and I worked in their technical office, and we were doing so they were doing the company Northrop was doing the certification of the roof. So we were kind of designing in parallel, doing our own independent thing. And it was really fun because like those guys are brilliant timber engineers. Like they do it day in, day out. They're very, very advanced. But when you look at what that looks like in Australian context and durability and all that sort of stuff, like there's a lot of holes as well. So I feel like it was a very collaborative
Is that right?
approach. And the Italians have it sorted, man. Like their work-life balance is just like, man, it's something else. Like
I actually work for an Italian company right now. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Mate, they have it so sorted over there. So it's, made heaps of good friends, and just having time in the factory and being like, we're making these adjustments and figuring out the full kind of production line and how different manufacturers differ from each other and what these guys do well. And I think that was, really, really powerful.
How good.
Really powerful.
So it's a really collaborative process you mentioned. What were the bits that they were missing? What was the stuff that we were doing in Australia, like the durability stuff that you mentioned? So, what was that?
Like, I think there was a certification element to it as well. So, for every concrete truck we see in Australia, there's a timber logging truck or a timber truck around that northern part of Italy. Like
Is that right?
They use this material everywhere because it makes sense from a resource perspective. All the forestry's there, they have the material, so they can, it's very cost effective. Whereas in Australia, we're not quite there yet with the abundance of supply and demand. So our price is kind of here, but we're getting there, and there's some awesome Australian manufacturers around, but just there, it's just on steroids. Like it makes so much more sense.
I've been doing it for years.
Yeah. And so I think in terms of what they were missing, like interpreting loading, I think, and like the code. So, we're doing all earthquake code to Australia, wind code for Australia.
Of course.
Loading, how to kind of interpret that. Durability on, the corrosivity. They couldn't believe how like the environment it was in. And at the end of the day, it's a spruce product. So it's a European softwood, and that was a lot of my work, trying to making decisions on how we're going to detail the timber, concealing the connections in there and plugging it all up. But then you have, what happens to the pH of the timber like when it sits in that environment? Because then it's more a function of there's still some level of kind of corrosion within it, and then you're kind of plugging it. So how do you make sure that it's all inspectable and kind of stuff like that? So it was something that they were definitely not used to. And just funny stuff like RFIs and like, just like, I feel like the Italians, they're so passionate. Like, and like, there was lots of funny meetings. Like, it's like, why would you do this? This is stupid. And it's like,
just tell you really straight.
it's like,
how could you be so stupid, Matt?
Yeah. I know. But
how good. So
it was really fun. Really fun.
I thought it might be cool to talk to you about, you'd mentioned there's a couple of projects that didn't do all that well. We won't mention anything. But what is it that, if you're a young structural engineer designing timber things, what's your lesson learned,
Yeah.
What's the thing that you're looking out for the most?
I think that you need to be very conscious of aligning the right material for the right application. So some jobs where you've had issues, like I think to myself, how did that ever get it? Like it probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, like, so materiality is a big thing. And typically I'm not really a fan of, let's say, doing external timber unless you're doing like a really solid hardwood, Australian kind of product.
It just gets belted in our
It's
sun.
just, yeah, and that's like, it'll crack up. It's a natural material, like your deck at home. So if you can keep it to kind of internal service class 2 covered, like through good detailing, I think that's good. And then the other thing, is I think we're so much better at it now, but it's the durability, both long and short term.
Okay.
And that's like a concept that it's not really relevant to other materials. So if it rains when you're erecting steelwork, okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Who cares? Like
Yeah.
the steel's fine. So I think that I'll give you an example. Like exposed timber is a really, really good durability strategy because it's so simple. Like if something ever happens, like the fish market, like it's all exposed, you can see it. And that, as a designer, it's like, oh, that's really good. And it's the whole point, right? It's a beautiful material, expose it. But if you've got how you manage moisture throughout construction, particularly if you're then cladding an element and you're getting water entrapment and you don't have mechanisms in place to monitor the moisture, moisture management plans, all that sort of thing, like the construction of it is really quite like there's an art form to it and it needs to be really, really scrutinized and there needs to be a plan. So like my approach to these jobs is I put, construction durability as a design element, so you might check for other trades you might you size a beam, you size a column and you do the durability. Like that's a thing that you put that everyone discusses right at the beginning. And it's a tick box that if that hasn't been followed through, then we're not going to do it.
You're not going to keep going.
Exactly. Like it's not something that it's like, oh, we got all this timber on site and it started pissing down rain and like
completely.
And I think like some of the guys put cladding on it or something or hasn't given a chance to dry. These are all such solvable things as well. Like these aren't really big problems, and everyone's been doing it for years, but it's just something different. So it's like the durability, short term and long term.
Yeah.
Particularly around detailing and material choice. I think that's where we are learning, and there's some really, really good mass timber suppliers out there, and they're doing really, really good work.
That's awesome.
And installers, and I think that is the biggest risk. Like you need to actually follow it through, and you need a way of monitoring the moisture of timber throughout its life cycle as well. And that usually just looks like, wireless moisture sensors in a couple of key areas that's giving you feedback. It's basic stuff, but it makes all the difference. And if the durability thing isn't put in as a key design task at the start of the job, I'd be asking some questions, because it's easy to, you can size some stuff up and do all that, but it's the bigger picture of that.
Yeah. If I was being honest, Matt, when I've moved into tier 1 is when I really started getting into durability stuff, If you get it wrong in the design, it's difficult to find a way out when the design's all locked in. And I can only imagine, with a product which is like timber, where if you do get it wrong, you're compromising the integrity of the strength, as an example, And I think that's really interesting. And I think for engineers out there, if you haven't been thinking about durability stuff, then I think it's something that you should really focus on. It's where we're all moving, I think.
Yeah, and you're paying, you need the building to stand the test of time.
Completely.
And you need it to be a really nice experience for everyone and for the building owners. Like the developers need to come away from that going, wow, this is great.
Yeah, my maintenance cost is low, or they know what it is, and there's no surprises.
The right stuff and that's not hard. It's just a couple of conversations at the start of the project, but it needs to happen.
Not hard. That's the understatement of the century.
Yeah, and it's an interesting throughout. I'm just going to rely on concrete and steel.
Yeah.
If you look at that from a design workflow as a structural engineer, you find the biggest load or the critical load.
Yeah.
And you kind of, there's this many bolts or there's this much amount of reinforcement. And that's kind of how you design a lot of these elements. Whereas timber, the connections are generally governed by durability.
Is that right?
Because it's, you might, this would work the best, but then, water can get trapped in here. Or what if this got wet in construction and it never left that? It's actually it's another thing to
just gets locked in.
Yeah, so it's not just let's just do it like this. It needs to be really robust and be able to respond to, because it's all buildings leak, right? It's not if, it's when. And you need to, in your details, you need to have a pathway for that to not cause a big hazard and be detrimental to the structure. You don't really do that in steel and concrete, because you're not like, if you've got a roof slab up there and you've got a leaky roof and it's pulling on the concrete, like it's all good. But there's just a little bit more to think about how you're actually passing all that through and making detailing that's robust in its durability. And it's a material that I'm not familiar with. Like, it drives a lot of it, like it needs to be part of that design for sure.
Yeah, cool. And we're kind of coming to the end of the episode. There's two things that I still wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
Is firstly, you started your own business and you're kind of setting up a really nice environment for the future and what you wanted to see in timber. I guess, were there any kind of lessons learned and anything that you took from your early career that's kind of helping your way of managing your own business now? Was there anything that kind of you're leaning on from back in the day?
Yeah, there's probably two core things for me personally that's kind of I've had success with, and it's just copying, other mentors. It's nothing new. But one of them, I remember a guy saying to me that a real gripe I have just generally, just as a preface to this, is, when like you're listening to someone successful or whatever, and they're telling their story and they're like, I got really lucky. Or I got really lucky with this thing. Yeah. And I hate hearing that.
That's me, mate.
Yeah, because I'm like, far out, man. Like, how did he get so lucky in that? But, and that, I don't like hearing those stories, because I don't like, but, it's like thinking about it a bit like it's, I got so lucky, but no, you started your own business, you positioned yourself here, you've been working at it all the time, and that opportunity came up and you took it.
And you ran with it.
So did you get really lucky? Or did you position yourself in a way that you could capitalize on any opportunities?
You're in the perfect spot.
Exactly. So I hated hearing that, but now I understand, like, no, like he or she, like, they've already done all this work, and yes, they capitalized on that opportunity, but they built the whole foundation.
All the groundwork.
Exactly.
Was in place.
Someone, when I think it was like a grad day, they were like, look, you'll be given a lot of opportunities in your career, like as a grad and blah, 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 but it's up to you to seize that opportunity. And that just really stuck, because, the only kind of regrets I've had is kind of, I probably should have pushed that a bit harder, or I should have done that, and these little opportunities, they may not, it's so simple, whether it's like working with another person, and like, let's absorb everything they know,
Completely.
Or like, it's these little, okay, I've been given a task and I'm actually going to just really get into the detail, and and all these little kind of opportunities, but it's up to you to, really seize that opportunity, and that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then, the other, again, particular to kind of consulting, is I used to think it's like you need to be the smartest person in the room, and like, if my slab is like 10 mil thinner than yours, like, I'm a genius. But like, but looking at the bigger picture and being like, maybe you shouldn't have done a slab at all, or like, or figuring out like what I've had a lot of fun with is getting across all the supply chain, the pricing, what stuff costs, and all this, the bigger picture. I think that's, engineers have a tendency to solve a problem in front of them, but should that be the problem that you're solving?
That's so interesting, Matt. And that really just reminds me of one of my mentors, who I'm hoping to get on the show soon. I'm not going to say his name, but he had this way of always going back to the client with not necessarily the answer that they asked for, but the answer that they needed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did you do that? That's actually such a skill,
I know. And it's as simple as, take a breath before you just jump into something.
That's such good advice.
Because like, I just see it all the time in engineering. It's like, yes, this person is technically amazing, very competent, and like, that's a really cool design, like, you've done it, but it could just be the completely wrong sort of thing, and like,
that's so really good.
Yeah, taking a bit of a breath before you jump into it and say, if I'm going to spend a day working on this,
is it the right thing?
Is it the right thing to do? And that's really hard early on.
Yeah.
But you can still ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask you, well, why are you doing it this way? Oh, well, because, get to the bottom of why you're doing it, at least.
Maybe
That's
it is the
what
right answer.
that's what you can do early on. But I think later in your career, you got to be quite curious and be like, why are we doing this?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch on, while we've got you here, where you think timber's going. And I know that you're pretty excited about a couple of different things, bamboo being one of them.
Yeah, I love bamboo.
Tell us about where you kind of think the industry's going, in the next 5-10 years.
I think the success, it's going to be a growing market for sure for the next kind of 5 to 10. I'm not sure about the rest, as I said, but I think if we keep taking the approach of not relying so much on the sustainability aspect of the timber, but all the other problems it solved, I think it really has a future just as a robust material for steel and concrete. And again, it doesn't make sense for every job.
Completely, yeah.
But I'm just do yourself a favor, walk into a mass timber uni or something, and just have a bit of a feel about how the place feels and how it looks like. I don't think people will ever get sick of that.
No, 100%.
And I think everyone has a natural kind of connection to it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, I'm really positive, but I think it just needs to be done right. And that's the whole reason I started to go on the journey that I'm doing, because if I can help a couple of people and steer them in the right direction, then happy days.
So I was reading about, we don't have code written for bamboo at the moment.
Yeah.
It's been something that you've been working on. Can you just give us a little skerrick of what that's been like and what
really
you've been
good.
kind of doing?
It's always nice to do something new. I thought mass timber was new as well. And
It is. I mean, it still is.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to do something, something different that kind of hasn't really been done. So I think it was I've been doing a fair bit of work in that space, and it's particularly on durability, actually.
Yeah.
Because, bamboo makes a lot of sense paired with mass timber.
I was going to ask you about the kind of the pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah, it's super, super strong, axially, so tension and compression, which, for bracing and stuff, it has a
Makes sense.
Really, really makes sense. And it's just the regeneration of it. It
just grows so fast.
so quick.
Wow, yeah, of course.
And it hasn't really been used a lot in the context of a glue lamb structure, so making beams and columns with it. And so therefore, there's different species, etc. But it's been really fun just working out, doing, it's heaps of fun pulling stuff apart and breaking stuff and stuff.
Are there any bamboo buildings in Australia?
There's a small one, but not currently. But what we're working on, and I went through the same thing with mass timber and CLT, it's working on a compliance pathway, getting all the testing done and just opening that up to, so it's not so hard. And it kind of just made sense to me because we've already kind of been on that journey with mass timber. So there's no point we can't add another sustainable material into the mix. And I think it's exciting. The regeneration case of bamboo's just crazy. And it's not the silver bullet. I mean, I think its future is more been incorporated into the mass timber space as certain elements.
Yeah, cool.
But it definitely does stuff better than, traditional soft and hardwoods. But then it's also not so good at some other stuff. And I think particularly bamboo is actually a grass. So the way timber treatment and stuff, you could do that. It doesn't really respond the same. So it's been fun trying to figure out how we kind of do that and then go through a compliance pathway and it should be good.
My partner and I, we put a bamboo floor down in the apartment and it's so hardy.
Yeah.
It's so robust. I remember dropping hammers and saws and stuff on it. It doesn't even scratch it.
Yeah, no, it's
how?
it's not new. And as I said, for the audience can't see, but there's bamboo, it's everywhere as a cladding element.
Yeah.
But it's about taking the technology that the mass timbers use and applying it there. It should be fun.
Yeah, how good.
Should be fun,
how exciting. So, hey, Matt, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on the show. I've taken a lot from this episode and, I'm learning a lot about timber and kind of working out how different types of structures can get rationalised, with builders and developers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on the show. If you like the sound of this show and you want to hear more, please like, comment and subscribe. I'd really like to give Matt his very own Full Send Engineering t-shirt.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show, and we really look forward to more episodes like this. Thanks again, Matt.
No, thanks for having me, mate. It's been really fun.
Yeah.